Ontario Premier Doug Ford's plan to slash the number of Toronto City Councillors was tabled today amid plenty of controversy. The PC government's plan would see the number of council seats cut from 47 to 25 and could be passed in a matter of days. That's less than 3 months before the city's October 22nd municipal election. So what happens next in this collision course between Premier Ford and some members of Toronto City Council? Joining me now from City Hall with the latest is the CBC's Lisa Shing. So Lisa, what has the reaction been so far to Premier Ford's move?
Well, Catherine, this has been a hugely polarizing issue ever since the news broke late last week. And today, that tension, if you will, has continued among citizens, councillors, as well as candidates who are running in this municipal election. And it's because there aren't a lot of answers as to what exactly happens in the next couple of months leading up to fall's municipal election. At Queen's Park earlier today, a long line outside of people trying to get into question period to get some clarity and see what exactly the provincial government is saying about it. I was there in the gallery as well, and pretty much every single question from the opposition was attacking Doug Ford and the Conservatives and their 11th hour decision, if you will. That legislation was tabled today, but prior to that, during question period, Andrew Horvath had some harsh words for Doug Ford and the Conservatives, if you will. Have a listen.
He has no mandate whatsoever to inflict his own will on the people of Toronto, Niagara, Peel, York and Muskoka with the most anti-democratic action that this province has seen in years. When did he decide to be a bully instead of a premier, Speaker?
Some tense exchanges there. Now, Lisa, we know that some of the members of Toronto City Council do not like this idea. Do they have any sort of legal case here to fight this?
Well, you know, that is the million-dollar question at this point. Just a few minutes ago, actually, Catherine, I'm getting word that council voted in favor of the city solicitor looking into what kind of legal avenues the city has against the province, if any. Now, candidates, we know, are also looking into the same route. And really, the issue comes down to a few things. First of all, this is happening in the middle of an election period. And what happens to some of the candidates is really up in the air, like I said earlier. And the other thing is really there was no notice. So some of the councillors are telling me that they want the city solicitor to explore this. Here's what Mayor John Tory had to say about this.
But I think we should be taking a look at every possible legal avenue, really to hit the pause button on this, to stop it. I don't think there's any way we can stop it necessarily in the context of having the province not able to move forward with changes to the City of Toronto Act on this or other areas, but I think we sure can call into question the process here.
Okay, so clearly a lot of questions right now. Not a lot of time considering, as you said, Catherine, the election is only a couple of months away, but these candidates, the citizens, as well as councillors really want to know what exactly the landscape will look like going forward. So an interesting couple of months, if you will, going forward.
Absolutely. Thank you for walking us through it, Lisa. The CBC's Lisa Shing in Toronto. So, how are some of Toronto's current councillors handling news of the cuts? Do they support or oppose the Premier's plan? Joining me now from Toronto is City Councillor for Ward 39, Jim Karagianis, and City Councillor for Ward 19, Mike Layton. So, Councillor Karagianis, I want to start with you. The justification for cutting the number of councillors is that it's going to lead to better, more efficient decisions. Explain to me how fewer representatives, presumably with heavier workloads in many cases, are going to improve the decision-making process.
Well, this is a decision that was made by Premier Ford, a little bit above our pay grade, myself and Councillor Layton. The new wards 47 and the way they were going to be apportioned would have my ward, Ward 43, the proposed ward, with 69,000 people, and downtown wards at 30,000. So there's the disproportionality there. So we're going into the federal boundaries, provincial boundaries, which are more equal. We're going to have a little bit more workload, but you know what? If federal members of parliament, provincial members of parliament can do it, so can we. I've done the federal work, I've done the municipal work. It's equal, and I know how to do it, and I'm looking forward to doing it.
But you could redistribute the way that the wards work, right? You could not necessarily cut the number of councillors, but try to make it so that the wards are similar. Why is cutting jobs, cutting representation actually going to improve services?
The way the wards that were made, the 47, and the way that the consultants brought it forward, they were supposed to be all equal in 2026. Well, they're not equal today. This is like something like 8 years away and maybe 20 years away. The federal boundaries, the provincial boundaries, when the redistribution gets done by the Commission federally, there's a deep dive. They try to make sure that they're equal numbers. They try to make sure that the distance in areas outside the City of Toronto are equal. So they've done this time and time again, and it's done every 10 years federally. So they do it correctly, and I'll tell you one thing, they do it nicely. And I'm supportive of the decision that Mr. Ford is putting. And again, it's a little bit above our pay grade. And people that will stand up and say it's undemocratic, we're going to challenge it and all that stuff, fine, go ahead and challenge it. Go ahead and say you're going to put the pause button on. They tried that in '97, it did not work, and it's not going to work now. So the sooner we become accustomed to it and we move forward, the better it's going to be.
Councillor Layton, I mean, you heard Councillor Karygiannis. He says, listen, our federal counterparts can do it. What do you say to that?
Well, I couldn't agree with him more. I couldn't disagree with him more. Well, we actually have municipal politicians and federal or provincial politicians. Their work really can't be compared. We deal a lot in the day-to-day lives of people where we're responding to emergencies. These are people that need our help navigating the municipal system. We're also on the front lines of the interaction between businesses and individuals. And so when you look at a ward like mine or like other downtown wards that have a lot of urban development, a lot of new buildings going up, that takes a lot of evening meetings, people and councillors and city staff interacting to try to come up with a solution to those problems. And I got to tell you, that level of access is going to be reduced under the current model. And Mr. Karygiannis is right. There is some disparity in some of the wards now, but we were actually moving towards there being parity amongst that over time so that we don't take a moment in time now, but then have to redraw the boundaries in a couple years. There's a ward in downtown Toronto that's 30,000 now, but it's going to be 60,000 just 5 years from now. So we don't want to continue to have to go through that very lengthy and very expensive process of redrawing the lines. Rather, we went through a 3-year process and then defended in court 47 wards that in fact are more reflective of where our city's going than where it's been. And I'll remind Councillor Karygiannis, I believe he supported 47 when it was originally brought to
Mike,
the floor of council.
I put 25 on the table to mirror image the federal, and that was voted against. Let me just remind you of that one. You voted against the 25.
Well, it was because I believe that we actually should have better representation and be able to pick up those phone calls and talk to people when they call us. When you sit on the number of committees that we have to sit on at the City of Toronto, it leaves very little time to do some of that one-on-one engagement that is so valuable and that people, I think, really respect and really enjoy about the municipal level of government that they don't necessarily get at the other two levels of government. Some of that may be that their members
Mike,
are traveling, but I think it's really important to focus on that direct connection that we get regularly with our constituents and those evening meetings around in church basements, around coffee shop tables about how our city's growing. People want to have that level of access. The reality is the way it's happening too is just unbelievable. The Premier, on the last day of nominations coming in for council seats, change the rules of the game in the middle. What kind of disrespect does that show to all of those
Mike,
hundreds of candidates?
I had the opportunity to serve with your father.
Councillor Layton, I'd like to have Mr. Karygiannis weigh in on the point that you just raised. The timing, sir.
I had the opportunity to voice to work with your dad federally, and I have a lot of respect for him when he was there. You know what? He was able to carry on the federal work. And a federal politician, a municipal politician, it's a politician. And at the end of the day, if you cannot serve your constituents with a larger constituency, maybe you're not worth coming back.
Councillor Karygiannis, though, the timing, sir.
Returning.
The timing, sir, the point that Councillor Layton just raised, is this really the right time to be doing something like this?
You know what? It's not our decision. This is the provincial decision, and this is the responsibility of the province. It's the responsibility of the Premier when he wants to bring it on, be it that he brought it in the wrong time, the right time. This is not our decision. Our decision is we agree or disagree. Even if we disagree with what he's doing, we have absolutely no choice. We are a creature of the province. The province dictates, we have to follow. So the faster that we move ahead and we say, okay, let's start working, let's start making sure that we align our boundaries, let's make sure that we're able to represent the constituents, the better it's going to be.
Okay, but the fact of the matter is, for your riding, sir, your ward, this isn't really going to change things all that much. Whereas in the case of Mr. Layton, Councillor Layton, if I understand correctly, sir, you're now potentially really going to be fighting for re-election, possibly against Joe Cressy, if I understand correctly. Someone suggested that today.
Well, Councillor Cressy and I have had some conversations. We'll be having them with our community. Our wards are actually split into two federal ridings. So it's
this
unlikely.
makes your life harder professionally,
Well,
in terms of re-election.
We probably not for re-election, but when you look at my schedule, you can give my wife a call and tell her how many nights a week I'm out at either development meetings or community association meetings. I represent now 12 business improvement areas. These are areas of the city, businesses in the city that have come together to work together to improve the neighborhood. I would be on something like 20 of those. That's 20 evenings a week just on BIAs, let alone the hundreds of development files that are open. And I don't know about Councillor Karygiannis' schedule, but my schedule couldn't take much more, certainly not a doubling in the amount of meetings that I would be expected to attend. The business of the city is important. We need to have people who can dedicate time and dedicate their attention to ensuring that the business of the city can be
moving ahead in council. Because we're going to have less talking heads getting up.
Gentlemen, sorry, one at a time.
I disagree with you on that point.
Yeah, Councillor Karygiannis.
You know what? We're going to streamline the City of Toronto. We're going to have things made faster. We will not have to knock them, drag them down. Right now, the only thing that we do, we just are a bunch of talking heads discussing and discussing and discussing. And at the end of the day, after 10 and 15 hours of discussion at City Council, we all agree and we move ahead. The lesser politicians there is, the better it's going to be. People of the City of Toronto will have access to their representatives, and we will make things done faster. Now, I understand that Mr. Layton and the downtown NDPers might not be supportive of this because they'll have less people in council. Well, guess what? Them the breaks. They will be able to do things faster.
Them the breaks, but Councillor Layton, I'd like to ask you whether or not you think that's accurate. Is there any way to overturn this? Because all of the discussion I have suggested suggests that the province has the legal authority to do this and that any court challenge is destined to fail.
The province has the ability to change the City of Toronto Act, but what they don't have the ability to do is plunge the City of Toronto into chaos. And I really think that even Councillor Karygiannis could agree that the province and the Premier need to show the City of Toronto some respect that we in fact have started an election and that it is unfair to change the rules in the middle of the game.
Okay, we are going to have to leave it there, gentlemen.
Those are the cards that we're dealt. We got to play them.
A very spirited discussion. Thank you both for your time. Councillors Jim Karygiannis and Mike Layton.